Well, thank you, Brian, for recording. I'm Julie Meyer. I'm one of the educational specialists with California Deafblind Services, and we're thrilled to have you here today for our second session. I recognized a few names in the participant box, so thanks for joining us. And so just so you know, the meeting's recorded and we will be archiving the recordings on our website. So if you like what you hear here today, feel free to share the information with other people you're working with, whether they're families or colleagues. We're planning to present for 30 minutes so that we can have some time for discussion, questions at the end. Feel free to make a comment in the chat box if you'd like. You can also raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. You'll go under your participant name and find your name, and it should be there. We won't do the raised hand comments and questions until after the presentation. And if you do want to speak, then you'll just have to unmute yourself. We've asked everyone to stay muted during the presentation. And I'm going to post a link to this presentation as well as handouts and a presentation survey. I'll post that in the chat at the end of the, when we get to the discussion period. So no worries if you're feeling worried about seeing the handout, that will all be there. And any references I make, I'll be providing those links to those as well. So today we're talking about using object cues and calendars during distance learning. All of our training sessions are going to be focused on this new reality that we're living in right now of distance learning and pandemic restrictions and all the other changes in our lives. So last week we spoke about the importance of routines and structures, and this session builds on that. So at the top of the slide, I have the quote, the new, and then cross a line through normal, and now, the new now. Last month, California Deafblind Services, our offices are at San Francisco State University. And so we are part of the mailing that we get weekly from announcements from the president and other things. And the president wrote in a message about the start of the new semester, this idea of living in this new now, which she heard from one of the professors in the theater department. And what she was talking about is, it seems like everything that's occurred since last March, whether it's the pandemic and then schools shutting down and businesses shutting down and restaurants and all sports going, virtual and away from people, and then all of the racial justice movements that have been happening in the street. It just seems like something is constantly changing. So we've had to become really more adaptable and flexible of kind of figuring out how to do typical things like go to an amusement park with your kids, but now, everyone can sit on every other horse and kids have to have their masks on. And when you go to the grocery store, you have to stand in line and you have to notice where those markers are on the sidewalk so that you're standing 6 feet apart and have your mask on. And so these are all these things that I think it's a good example of the incidental learning that occurs for children when they're very young, and that we apparently continues to occur for us as we get older, and we just pick up and make these changes. Because I remember feeling back in March and April how weird and scary it was to go stand in line and stand 6 feet apart and have my mask on and be worried about being in crowds. But now it seems like everybody's kind of figured a way of figured out how to do this. And we didn't get a lesson to do it. We just kind of picked up on the clues that were out there. And on this slide, I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about, for individuals who are deaf-blind, we have to really think about the fact that there's all this other incidental learning that they might not already have picked up on, and all these other concepts that they might not have learned yet because they had the limitations from their vision and hearing loss. So I saw this guide when I was looking for examples of our new now, and on Google Images, this came up of social distancing guide for dog people, which I thought I assumed there'd probably be some dog people that came to this training today. But think of this, like you'd actually have to know quite a bit about dogs to have this be relevant or amusing or helpful. You'd have to know that a Pyrenees is a large dog. You'd have to know that beagles are medium size and Chihuahuas are tiny. And then you'd also have to even know the bigger concept that dogs actually come in bigger sizes. And there's not just one type of big dog or one kind of medium dog or one kind of little tiny dog. So I just think this slide was to help us keep in mind that on top of having to learn a lot of things that other people are just picking up on incidentally, a lot of the kids we're serving or the children that we're raising in our homes don't even have that other background incidental learning. That is why calendars and object cues are important, because they provide that missing information. Okay, so I want to show a short video clip. This is of Robbie Bleha from the Texas Deaf Blind Outreach Program at the Texas School for the Blind. It would really be wrong to do any kind of presentation on calendars and not reference Robbie. And what Robbie's going to talk about here is this idea of abstractness when we think about concepts of time and calendar systems. There's some parts of calendar systems, as you'll see today during the presentation, that are very concrete. That's where we're going to start. Very literal and concrete. But there's a lot of other abstract elements and vocabulary and concepts that are tied into calendar systems. And we actually want to introduce kids to some of those concepts as well. And if we do it consistently repeated, they will start to learn some of these concepts just because we're including that in how we're talking about our days, our weeks, our plans. So let's listen to Robbie. This will be captioned, Connie, so you won't have to worry about that.
Some of this is going to strike you as pretty abstract for children with deafblindness who are emerging communicators. However, many can learn an abstract word if it represents something they understand and really care about. They learn what they love. Perhaps another way to say it is they learn about the things that have emotional significance for them. I've seen many children with deafblindness who only know a few signs like mom or candy or swing suddenly learn and use an abstract time word. For example, I've seen many learn the term "and then" before they learn very many other signs. They come up to you and they say, "and then." And they're meaning, talk to me about the future. Tell me what we're going to do today. This term puts a name to a powerful need to know what's going to happen. Don't be afraid to use more abstract time words with these kids. They need them.
Okay, let's see. I have to get out of this and back to my other slide. Okay, so thank you, Robbie. And the key thing that I really love about what she said was that talking about kids learn these concepts and they learn things that they love or that they care a lot about or have emotional significance. And I think we need to keep that in mind right now in terms of how we're teaching kids and keeping that front and center, but also thinking about how important it is for them to be involved in knowing what's going to happen in their day. Because this must be, especially last spring, but even now, this must be very confusing to a lot of kids. A lot of kids who, this used to be school, right? This represented school. You left home, you went somewhere else. And there were certain rules there, there were certain routines there, there were certain things we did there that we expected. Then you came home and it was different there. You got to play there, you got to chill out, you got to let down. Now all of a sudden we're saying, wait, school's at home? So I got this photo from a a parent, she posted this on one of our charged Facebook pages, and it's her son in his first day of middle school. And I asked her if I could share this, because in a lot of ways there's some good things, and he's doing kind of okay. But there's also some things, as you can see, it's not as fun to sit and look at a computer. It might not be as engaging. You might not hear it, the instruction as well. You might not be able to see your friends. Some nice things that she did, though, she really tried to set up his bedroom to look like a classroom and to have some of that predictability and routine. Not that everybody has to do that, but it was nice to see that she did. So I saw this quote too when I was planning this presentation, and this really resonated with me. It's a teacher of students with visual impairments, and she wrote a nice blog on the Paths to Literacy website about using just tactile cues or objects to build routines. And as she reminds us, as learners, our brains seek out patterns. And I think that's really true. I think we talked about that last week. And I think we have to keep that in mind when we're thinking about what distance learning looks like for children. And I've got two examples here. One is if you're thinking about a kid who's joining a virtual class, because I know some kids are still, it's working to, if things are predictable and routine enough, it's working out okay, sort of, for them to be joining their virtual class at times and getting something out of it, enjoying seeing their peers and teachers. But I think, as you'll see on the list here, a lot of predictability is needed. And if possible, it happens at the same time and in the same place. So you can set up a place in the house so your child knows school's happening now. And then I was just speaking to a team this afternoon that was talking about how they've identified certain roles or tasks that the child does. The teacher always calls on the child to answer this kind of question, or at this point in the circle time, so that he knows something's coming up. So that's predictable. And then he has a way to respond. They figured out a way that he's kind of tapping his hands together, and that's letting them know that he understands and that he's saying, I'm here, I'm present. If we're thinking more about home routines at school, which is what we talked about last week, then we're not thinking about so much accessing the instruction through the screen, but we're thinking about doing something at home that is meaningful, and where we can be learnings occurring. And again, there needs to be a lot of routine and structure there in terms of consistency when it happens, happening kind of maybe in the same place, that there's order and sequence to it. We might have materials ready for it. So you might see something like you'd have a basket. I just have my garden basket that I got out. But if you were going to have gardening be a routine, there's another girl I'm working with who that's routine. So we might have everything in there. We might have gloves for gardening. And we're going to go over all this with her. We're going to help her see our gloves are here. Our seeds are here. We've got our watering can. We have our pot. So putting all those things together, and you can even review all that with the child beforehand. All these things that are helping to set it up so that they understand what's going to happen. We're going to think about targeting particular vocabulary. Certain words, certain phrases are either going to be spoken or signed during those activities. All of this, we repeat this, it goes over and over, and it's going to start to make sense to the child. It's going to start going in, whether they're hearing it or they're seeing it through spoken sign language or they're feeling it through object cues. So let's talk about object cues. I'm assuming that some of you that are here might be very well aware of what they are, but what an object cue essentially is it represents either an activity, a place, or a person. So, and they need to be something that's meaningful for the child. So you don't just go and buy object cues like at like APH or even at the dollar store and get one for every kid in the class. They're very individualized. So for instance, this is a bracelet that I wear. It's a little ceramic bead bracelet. And this is what I wear and I show to children who need that kind of, can't see me well enough and can't recognize my voice to know who I am. And I always wear that so that they know who I am. Object cues typically start out as a receptive communication form. We're giving the child information. This means that. So you show them the washcloth and you're letting them know, like, this means we're going to wash your face or we're going to be taking a bath now, right? So you have this washcloth and it means that. It could later become expressive communication if the child then has two things there that they get to make a choice about what they're going to do. but it's going to start out as receptive. You're giving the information. It can also be an object that's used in an activity, like a washcloth for bath time, or something that's worn by a person. Sometimes it'll be something that's part of an object that the child might associate with something. So like a chain, that might mean the swing at the park. You might use a spoon, that's going to mean it's mealtime, so you're not going to have everything there. But the child, if you always present the spoon before every mealtime, before every time they're going to eat, they'll start to associate that means that we're getting ready to sit down and eat something. And then the last thing to remember about object cues is, don't just give a small miniature of something and expect that that's going to be a good representation. So you can't give a child an airplane and expect that they're going to understand that an airplane's super, super large and that people fit inside of it, or a school bus. Something that might be more meaningful would be a strap from their seatbelt in the school bus. Now calendars, and today calendars can be quite abstract and not just only objects, but we're talking about that today because we're thinking about those types of learners that are at an emerging level where that's the level of receptive information they need. And it's going to give the child plans or information about what's planned for the day. So in the first photo, you see 3 shoe boxes, and it has a shoe in it. That means we're going to go outside. And then it has a glue, Elmer's glue for arts and crafts. And then it has a package of seeds because we're going to go gardening or planting seeds. Calendars also can teach these concepts of time and vocabulary. So as Robbie pointed out earlier, the kind of vocabulary we use, the language that we're using, we can help them learn about what happened yesterday, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening now today. And then it also gives students a chance to make choices. So perhaps they can pick what activity they want to do next, or they could talk and engage with people about what they did before lunch or what they're going to do in the afternoon. So there's ways that they can actually use those objects to also have a conversation. And then, as I said on the slide before about the object cues, every calendar system also has to be highly individualized. And so if you're thinking that you would like to do something like this with a child in your home, or with a child that you're helping to support, we'd be happy to talk with you about different things that you could be thinking about, but it really has to be tied to how does the child experience the world? What makes sense to the child? Who do they think that person is, and what represents that? What represents that activity for the child? So now we're going to put it all together, object cues and calendar systems. So we're using objects because we want to represent activities that are occurring over a period of time. So when kids get really good at using object calendar systems, and one of the resources in the handout is actually, there's 2 good resources that give you extensive information about calendar systems. One is at the Texas School for the Blind's website, and it's part of their communication module, and they have a whole section on calendars. And you'll see there children that learn to use calendars that talk about the entire week and the entire month with very abstract symbols. But first, we're going to talk about these concrete symbols. So you're going to think about how far the child can understand the activities that are going to happen. So do we maybe want to have 3 activities for the morning is what's going to be in our calendar? Maybe we just want this activity and then the next one, so just first then. You'll want to think about literacy with calendars. So we're going to put the objects, assembling them left to right or top to bottom, typically how someone would kind of do the order of things. So, and you see in this picture, there's just shoe boxes. So it really can be as simple as getting a shoe box and putting, the first object in there. So say maybe we're going to start out with books, and we're going to have books. And then what's nice about the shoebox idea is you can also close it and then move on to the next shoebox, which might be a brush because you're going to do hygiene, or it might be a ball because you're going to go out and play ball with your brother or something like that. So they can be simple things you find around the house. You want to present the item before the activity so that they know what's happening, and then we want to either put it back in that box and close it up, or have another finished basket so that want to make it very clear that we're all done, we're finished. Sometimes the child might want to keep the item with them the whole time. So here's a picture of a young boy who has a floaty, and that meant he was going to swim in his swimming pool. And he's also using that during the activity. So for some kids, having that referent that they keep with them during the activity is helpful. And then we're going to start small and we're going to expand as the child learns these concepts. So if you haven't done this before with this child, maybe you're going to start with, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do that. Then maybe you move on to 3 activities in the morning. We're going to think about first, then next. Now we're all finished and complete. And then we want to be really consistent with implementing this. So this isn't something that we remember to do one day and then we forget to do for a few days and try again and we do it at a different time. We want to be really consistent how we implement this, and everybody that's participating or using it should be consistent. So how you select the items and organize the system. So first, it has to be meaningful to the child. So really think about, is that child attracted to certain colors? Is that the thing they're going to notice about the item? Will they notice the texture of it? What size does it need to be? Maybe there's a smell. We talked about the soap with a bath time. We saw the picture of that earlier. Maybe there's a sound. Maybe this means music because it's a noise that the child can hear. We're going to think about that it's got that connection to the activity, place, or person, and then that it's portable, that we're thinking about that we might be able to take it with us if we left the home to go to visit another family member or went to the park or the store. So if that's possible, we want it to be portable. We talked about the shoe boxes, but it could be anything. It could be plastic containers you get at the dollar store or Target. I've seen a class that used a shoe organizer that you see in your closet. So, and just did it top to bottom with the items that she could reach in and then see what was next. That was really effective for her. I mentioned first, then, and finish boxes. And then for kids who have cerebral visual impairment, you might want to think about making sure that the background is dark. So you're using a dark box, or you're using a felt board or a black felt book. I was talking with a early interventionist visual impairments a couple weeks ago, and she has these really cool black felt books that actually have a pocket on the bottom, so you can, when the activity's over, you can put it down in the pocket. That seemed like a really good way to teach that to young children, that idea. I'm looking at my time. Okay. Consistency and time. Okay. So consistency, I mentioned that earlier, but consistency isn't just the use, remembering to have the objects out, but thinking about how you're using the objects. So first of all, the same object. So if this means drink, this yellow cup means drink. We don't just grab any other cup. We know that this is the cup that we're using. We're going to use the same language cues, whether those are spoken or we're signing those cues, but we're going to really be targeting certain vocabulary. We're going to go in that same order and sequence. We're going to think back to, that's how we're helping them. We're providing those direct learning experiences that they're missing because of the incidental learning issues. And we're going to talk about concepts of time. We're going to talk about first, then, and then. So what's going to happen after this? We're going to talk about, remember what happened before. We're going to maybe talk about the order of first, second, third. All of those things can be introduced. And then the other key thing is, just like most things with children with deaf blindness, especially those who are emerging communicators or have additional disabilities, we need to give them time, all right? So we're going to provide plenty of processing time, and we're going to allow the child to explore that item. It's going to be okay to present the cup and have the child feel the cup and have the child bang the cup and have the child bite or lick the cup or smell the cup. We're going to let them explore it. Whatever they're doing, they're using all the senses that they have available to try to figure out what this has, because remember, they're trying to attach meaning to this, okay? We're gonna give them time to recognize this object. Aha, that's the cup that keeps coming at me. Wow, that cup keeps coming at this time. That cup always happens right before we're gonna sit down to a meal, or always at this time when I'm gonna sit down with my book and my mom and, you know, have a snack or something. So, because as they have a chance to explore it, then have a chance to recognize it, so that light bulb goes off, they're like, hey, I know that. And then they can make that connection that actually means something. That means this activity is happening, or that means we're going to this place, maybe the park or grandma's house, or that means this person. That means that this is the person that I'm with right now, or this is the person that's coming to see me. So concepts and communication, and I'm so happy that the time seems to be working for me. Okay, so concepts of time. Key ones I think to focus on in the beginning are now, what's going to happen next, and we're finished. Also, first, then, finished, but really kind of establishing that there's a beginning. This will be the next thing. We might sometimes even go back and explore, look what we did first, now we're going on to this, and now we're finished. Concepts of today, yesterday, and tomorrow, those are abstract concepts, but they're things that many kids can start to grasp because there's something that's not too far of a reference to something that happened a long time ago or something that's far in the future. We might have different things that happen on weekdays versus weekends, so kids can start to differentiate that calendars and the routines are different on different times. And then that concept of and then that Robbie spoke about. There's a lot of numeracy concepts as well. There's a lot of concepts that are related to noticing that pattern in things, right? So as learners, we're searching for those patterns. So they start to see those patterns. They start to learn that there's an order, there's a sequence to how things happen. They can learn things about numbers. Again, if it's first, second, third, or even just first, then, or first, last. We can start to explore sizes. There's a lot of numeracy concepts that can be built into calendar communication. And then relationships concepts. So kids can start to understand that cause and effect, that as they start to learn what these object cues stand for, and then they can start to get to a point where they could actually prefer one or reach for one or do something with one. They could be understanding that I can say this, and someone's going to respond to that, and that's cause and effect. Also understanding cause and effect in terms of this is always presented to me before this activity occurs, so that connection. We can start thinking about same and different. We can start thinking about categories and groups of things, and then that idea also of if then happens. So and you want to be embedding these concepts into all the activities and calendar activities or systems that you're using across the day and the week. So these are things that we can be thinking about. So this isn't something that should just be presenting an object, not having any language or conversation attached to it. I think it's really important, and we'll be talking more about this in a few weeks. Our family engagement specialist, Myrna, is going to come and talk about having those kinds of conversations and social back and forth, and how important that is, especially these days. So I think we can teach a lot through conversation, and I think we can use objects and calendar systems to do that with kids who are are limited in terms of their formal language. So they're not able to have that conversation using spoken language or signed language. And I'd like to show you an example before we move into our discussion and conversation. So this is in the field of deafblindness, this is a fairly famous video called Calendar Conversation, or Cookie Time. A lot of people refer to it as Cookie Time. The man here, who at the time I think was working perhaps as an intervener, or he might have just become a teacher of children who are deafblind, is Chris Montgomery. He's in Texas, and this is Ray, a student in his class, and they are going to be doing a cooking project. So you'll see behind him, there's a calendar box that has all the materials for what he's going to be using for cooking. So I just want you to watch this, and then we'll go into our discussion.
Oh yeah, you're right, it's finished. All finished. Finished. Bathroom is finished. Okay, what are we doing now? Cookie time. Cookie time. What do we got? Oh, look at all our stuff here. Got our bowl. Got our, oh, it's a little sugar. sugar. Yeah, there's your bowl. Okay, look, it's empty. It's empty because it's on your bed. It's all empty. What else is down there? Oh, you want this one? Your baking sheet. Nothing on it. What else you got? Look. Oh, it's oven mat. Oven mat. Okay. All our stuff together. Oops, there's our sugar in there. Oops. Oops, right here. Sugar. Sugar's in there, sugar. Measuring cup. And our oven mitt. Okay, let's go. Cook some cookies. Let's go. Woo!
Okay. And I'm going to stop my share. So that video to me is remarkable on so many levels. First, you can see the use of a calendar system, both a formal one in the back that had his day, the events of his day, but then they used objects to give him a lot of pre-learning or information before the activity about what was going to happen, explaining a lot of things about concepts of in and out, materials that would be used, but also there was all this back and forth conversation without words, and or a little bit of sign, but mostly just movement and gestures and using the materials on their body, and clearly had a strong, trusting relationship, very connected. So I love that example because I think and the pace, plenty of time for this kid to initiate. So I love it because it shows examples of how joyful learning and teaching can be, and also and could be when you're doing home activities as well. So I think that's important to remember the joy in learning. So I see there's a few things in the chat. Oh, Connie, I didn't see that right now. And no, there wasn't captions on that last one, so I'm sorry. But I can look and see. I'm surprised that there weren't, because I did try to turn them on. I will, there must be a version of that that has the captions, so I will make sure that that gets loaded into the archives with these materials. So I'd like to open it up for discussion or questions.